Why millions are quietly leaving the US for India. There is a strange kind of silence spreading across American suburbs, the kind you only notice when a house that was always full suddenly goes dark, and the family that lived there simply stopped answering calls from the old country because they were too busy building a new one back home. Nobody announced it on the news, there was no press conference, no dramatic headline splashed across television screens, but quietly, steadily, year after year, thousands of Indian families who once believed America was the final destination of their lives have started packing up and heading east, back toward the country they once left behind. This is not a small story about a few homesick people. It is a growing pattern, and once you understand why it is happening, you will never look at the American dream the same way again. For nearly half a century, the story ran in only one direction. Bright young Indians finished their engineering degrees, boarded long flights, and chased a life that felt bigger than anything available at home. America meant good salaries, modern cities, and a shot at building something that mattered on a global stage. It was the finish line every ambitious family in India quietly hoped their children would reach. But somewhere along the way, that finish line started to feel less like a reward and more like a trap, and the people caught inside it finally began asking themselves a hard question. Was this dream actually still worth it? Let us begin with the wound that cuts the deepest, the one buried inside America's own immigration system. Every year, tens of thousands of skilled Indian workers arrive in the United States on employment visas, ready to build careers, pay taxes, and raise families on American soil. But because of an outdated rule that limits green cards by country of birth, Indian applicants face a backlog so severe that immigration lawyers have openly warned some individuals could wait over 100 years for permanent residency. 100 years, longer than a human lifetime. Families found themselves living entire careers in a country that welcomed their labor but withheld any real promise of belonging. Watching colleagues from other nations receive green cards in a fraction of the time simply because of where they happened to be born. That quiet unfairness built up slowly, year after year, like water pressing against a dam that was never designed to hold it forever. But that was only the first crack. Then came a wave nobody saw coming, one that shook the entire foundation of the American tech dream. Massive layoffs swept through Silicon Valley's biggest names, companies that once seemed untouchable, cutting tens of thousands of jobs almost overnight. For an American citizen, a layoff meant stress and job hunting. For an Indian visa holder, it often meant something far more terrifying, a strict 60-day countdown to find new sponsorship or leave the country entirely, uprooting children from schools and lives built over a decade. Families who believed they had finally achieved stability suddenly discovered how fragile that stability really was, built on paperwork that could vanish with a single email from human resources. That fear changed something permanent inside an entire generation of professionals who had given America their best years. And once a dream starts to feel this uncertain, people naturally begin looking for solid ground somewhere else. That is exactly the moment many of them turned their attention back toward India, and what they found waiting for them completely surprised them. The country they remembered was full of power cuts, traffic jams, and limited opportunity, a place people escaped rather than returned to. But the real story runs far deeper than old memories. India had been quietly transforming itself while everyone abroad was busy chasing someone else's dream. Cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and Gurugram had grown into genuine global technology centers, home to research and development labs for the very same companies these engineers once dreamed of joining in California. Global giants were no longer treating India as a place for cheap outsourced labor. They were building serious innovation hubs there, running advanced projects in artificial intelligence, semiconductor design, and cloud infrastructure, led entirely by homegrown Indian talent.
Suddenly, the exact same skills that once required a visa and a plane ticket to Silicon Valley could be used from an office in Bengaluru, earning a respectable salary, living close to family, and paying a fraction of the cost of living. This alone changed the math for thousands of returning professionals. New highways connected distant cities in half the time they used to take. World-class airports replaced crowded, outdated terminals. Metro systems expanded rapidly through cities that had never imagined such infrastructure before. For someone stepping off a plane after 15 years abroad, the India waiting for them barely resembled the country they had left, and that shock alone was enough to change their entire outlook. But this story is not only about jobs and infrastructure. Something far more personal was pulling these families home. Ask anyone who has lived abroad for years, and they will describe a quiet, constant ache. The ache of missing festivals, missing weddings, missing the simple joy of grandparents watching their grandchildren grow up in person instead of over a video call. In America, success often arrived wrapped in isolation. Big houses standing on quiet streets, comfortable salaries, but no neighbor stopping by for an unplanned evening meal. India, despite all its chaos, still offered something America struggled to replicate, a genuine and constant sense of community, where neighbors know each other by name, and family is never more than a short drive away. For many returning professionals, that emotional pull became impossible to ignore, especially once they became parents themselves and started wondering what kind of childhood they truly wanted to give their own children. But no one expected the numbers to make the decision even easier. Raising a family in America had quietly become brutally expensive. Healthcare bills capable of bankrupting an entire household overnight. Childcare costs devouring an entire second income. University tuition leaving graduates in debt for 20 years or more. Meanwhile, that same income back in India, even a modest one by American standards, could comfortably fund a private home, quality education, excellent healthcare, and household help, often all at the same time. For families running the honest math late at night at their kitchen table, the numbers told a story that became impossible to argue with. Even India's hospitals began telling a completely different story than the one people remembered from decades earlier. World-class private hospitals now offered advanced treatment at a fraction of American prices, staffed by highly trained doctors, many of whom had studied and worked at the very same institutions abroad before returning home themselves. Families who once feared moving back because of health concerns discovered instead a modern system that in many major cities genuinely rivaled anything they had left behind in the West. Then came the entrepreneurs, perhaps the boldest group of returnees of them all. For years, Indian founders in America watched Silicon Valley from the outside looking in, always the brilliant employee, rarely the funded founder, often overlooked by investors who favored familiar faces from familiar backgrounds. But India's own startup ecosystem exploded into something almost unrecognizable from what it had been a decade earlier. Billions of dollars in venture funding began flowing into Indian companies every single year. Government policies began actively rewarding entrepreneurs who chose to build and hire within the country, offering incentives that simply did not exist for outsiders trying to build the same thing abroad. Suddenly, the same ambitious mind that once needed permission from Silicon Valley to build something meaningful could now build something even bigger inside India and be celebrated as a national hero for doing exactly that.
This changed the entire calculation for countless bright, driven individuals. Why chase someone else's approval abroad when you could build your own legacy at home, backed by an economy hungry for exactly the kind of innovation you had to offer? But the next reason surprises almost everyone who hears it for the very first time. It has nothing to do with money at all. It has everything to do with identity. A strange thing happens to people who spend decades living inside a foreign country. They begin to feel like they belong nowhere completely.
too foreign for their adopted home, yet somehow too changed for the country they originally left behind. Their children, born and raised entirely in America, often felt an even stranger kind of disconnect, proud of their heritage on paper, yet distant from the language, the festivals, and the everyday rhythms that once defined family life back in India. For many parents, moving back was never simply a financial decision. It was a desperate and loving attempt to give their children real roots, a genuine connection to grandparents, culture, language, and identity before it slipped away entirely. That emotional wound, quiet but deeply powerful, pushed thousands of families to finally make the difficult leap home. There's also a growing sense of safety pulling families back that rarely gets discussed openly. Rising concerns about school safety, gun violence, and social instability in parts of the United States weighed heavily on parents raising young children in ways that were hard to ignore no matter how much they loved their adopted country. Meanwhile, India, despite its own very real challenges, offered something increasingly rare: close-knit neighborhoods, extended family support systems, and communities where children could walk to a cousin's house just a few streets away. For parents making decisions about their children's future, that sense of safety and closeness proved to be worth more than any salary difference could ever measure. Education tells its own quiet chapter in this unfolding story. American parents once believed no school system in the world could match the ones back home. But that long-held belief has started to crack under new realities. New international schools, world-class universities, and specialized research institutes have opened across major Indian cities, offering education that genuinely rivals anything found in the West, often at a fraction of the tuition cost. Parents who once assumed their children absolutely needed an American education to succeed globally are now discovering that a strong Indian education paired with the country's growing global reputation can open just as many doors, if not even more. There's also a quieter story here, one about women rediscovering unexpected freedom by returning home. Many Indian women who felt professionally overlooked in America, often facing subtle barriers as both immigrants and women simultaneously, found in India a booming economy hungry for exactly their skills, with entire industries actively competing to hire and promote them. For these women, coming home was never a step backward. It became, quite surprisingly, a step forward into leadership roles that felt distant and completely unreachable while living abroad. Now here comes a twist that almost nobody expected, because this shift did not stay limited to families of Indian origin alone. A small but steadily growing number of non-Indian Americans, drawn in by India's booming economy, rich spiritual traditions, and remarkably lower cost of living, began relocating to Indian cities themselves, chasing an entirely different kind of life. Remote workers who once logged in from cafes in California began logging in from cafes in Goa and Bangalore instead, chasing warmer weather, richer culture, and a lifestyle their American salary could stretch far beyond anything possible back home. This small but deeply symbolic shift told its own powerful story, one about the direction of global ambition itself, quietly beginning to turn. Travel influencers, retirees, and even fresh graduates from American universities began posting videos describing their new lives in India, filled with a warmth, an energy, and a sense of possibility they said they had never quite felt back home.
What once seemed almost unthinkable, an American deliberately choosing India over the United States, slowly stopped sounding strange and started feeling like the early edge of something much bigger unfolding. For generations, the entire world moved west, chasing what everyone called the American dream without question. Now, for the very first time in living memory, a real trickle of that same dream has begun moving east toward India instead. Behind every single individual decision to return lies something far bigger than one person's private story, a quiet, growing belief that India's best days are not behind it, but still very much ahead of it.
People do not walk away from a stable, comfortable life for a place they genuinely believe is fading. They move toward a place they truly believe is rising. And today, millions of talented, capable, deeply accomplished people are voting with their feet, choosing India not out of desperation, but out of real, hard-earned belief in its future. That belief did not appear overnight. It was built brick by brick through India's rapidly growing infrastructure, its booming technology sector, its expanding influence on the global stage, and its unmistakable new confidence in front of the entire world. Economists who once predicted India would take generations to catch up now openly admit they underestimated the speed of its rise, quietly revising their forecasts year after year as the numbers kept surprising even the experts. Global companies that once viewed India purely as a source of cheap outsourced labor now describe it as one of the single most important markets and talent pools on the entire planet. For decades, the wider world underestimated India, seeing only its poverty, its chaos, and its crowded streets, while completely missing the extraordinary transformation quietly building underneath the surface the entire time. Now, the very people who once had every reason in the world to leave are proving something that can no longer be ignored, that India has finally become a place worth returning to. This is not simply a story about visas, salaries, or dry economic statistics. It is the story of a nation quietly reclaiming its own children, calling them home not with empty promises, but with genuine, tangible opportunity. Somewhere right now, another family is sitting at a kitchen table in America, running the exact same numbers, feeling the exact same pull, quietly wondering if it is finally their time to go home too. It is the story of families choosing roots over restlessness, community over isolation, and belief over fear. Every single returning family carries a small piece of the world back with them, new skills, new ideas, new ambition, and every one of those pieces is now quietly rebuilding the very nation they once left behind so long ago. And as more planes land in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bengaluru filled with returning dreamers, one undeniable truth becomes impossible to ignore any longer. The world spent an entire century watching India's brightest minds leave in search of somewhere supposedly better. Now, for the first time, those very same brilliant minds are looking around the entire world and quietly choosing to come home. Because for a growing number of people, home is no longer somewhere they are desperately running from. It is finally, powerfully, unmistakably the place they are running toward.